Hey guys, just returned home with an unexpected treasure. Got a tip about this, I guess it was last night, from someone I've done some work for. This was in an estate sale, a small estate sale in Gary, Indiana. I'll tell you more about that in a bit. But first, I'll tell you what this is. This is a 1948 RCA television. It's an 8TS30, a successor to the 6TS30, which was their first flagship mass-produced tabletop television. This is I think the chassis is identical, but it is a different cabinet. This one was designed by John Vassos, I believe. Very Art Deco, kind of 30s look. It's unusual for a set from 1948. Really, really good chassis. That's why they kept making the same chassis for years. They also licensed it or sold it to many other companies, and they put it in their own cabinets. It's a beast. It weighs 100 pounds. It has 30 tubes, but it has maybe the best bandwidth and picture quality of any early black and white TV. So it's actually pretty similar to the, well, I shouldn't say that. So the 8T241, you may have been watching me restore recently, that's the simplified version of this chassis. They sold them both at the same time, but I imagine this cost a bit more. That blue you're seeing, that's an aftermarket mask somebody installed, I believe, to reduce glare or some such. So let me see if I can get this out of the car. I gotta clear a spot for it first. Got it out. One distinct feature on these early RCAs is they have a top that just opens up for easy access, and well, it looks like this was a mouse house at some point. So that could be fun to deal with. Hopefully it's just a bunch of fluff and not a lot of corrosion and shoot up wires, but time will tell. I grabbed a shop vac and cleaned it out, and yeah, that's pretty bad. There's a lot of bedding and a whole lot of seeds hidden away in there. I don't know. Also, who's to say what it's like underneath? Well. I mean, really, it's paying the money for the cabinet. Also, the early Television Foundation annual convention is coming up in a couple months. I may very well be able to score a chassis there. In fact, there was one of these entire sets at the fall swap meet, as I recall, and it went really cheap. So. Well, I got it for 35 bucks, so I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. Just the picture tube is worth way more than that if it's good. Here we are, a couple days later, and I have acquired a miserable cold, but I wanted to get a video out ASAP because I'm getting a lot of feedback about this set, and I want to address a few things. So the chassis is disgusting, to put it mildly. Yeah, I could restore it. I have dealt with a chassis that was really nasty. Brunswick 5KR radio comes to mind. It took a ton of work to get rid of all that caked on rodent urine, corrosion out of it. Yeah, I could just paint over it, neutralize it, but that's nasty too. And you can imagine, well, this set burns over 300 watts. It's these dual 5U4s. It gets really toasty. It's probably going to stink. But here's the bright side. This is a really common chassis. This was used in the flagship 630TS, which came out 2 years earlier. In other words, they used this chassis in 46, 47, and 48. RCA used it in two main cabinet styles. There were also some somewhat rare console models that used it. But they also licensed this chassis to a lot of other makers. like Fata and others who wanted to get into the TV game but didn't have the resources to make their own chassis. I think they might have even made this up in 49, 50, as I've seen some off-brands that were putting this like into custom cabinets, boutique kind of sets. So they're out there. In fact, I have 3 RCA 630 TS's. One was the first TV I ever got, and that one I'm definitely restoring and keeping. But one I got from somebody else who was moving, and he had already done a bunch of recapping on it. But the cabinet is rough. It's rougher than this one. So that's definitely a possibility. I could just swap that chassis into this cabinet, and that's that. Otherwise, the Early Television Foundation big annual meet is coming up in a couple months, and it's a decent chance I could find one there. But before I completely write it off, I want to take a look at the underside. There are some access hatches I'll have to, or at least one, I'll have to grab a screwdriver to get in. Or maybe we can, nah, it's sealed around. Because if it's all chewed up and eaten up inside, like all the wiring is chewed up, then it's an easy decision to make. However, it is pretty well sealed, so it's quite possible a mouse could not get inside. So I was curious about the back. Everyone I've seen originally had a metal mesh back. But this is masonite, but it's really pretty well cut out with some nice curves here. This stuff is not easy to cut, but there are also no markings on it. There's companies like Retrotronics that make reproduction backs out of masonite with a laser cutter. It's possible they made it. I don't know. The screws look pretty ancient. They're all matching, so either this is the original back or somebody replaced it a long time ago and did a really nice job. I really couldn't say. Hey, look at that. The original power cord is tucked up inside. Now remember, if you ever want to open up one of these access ports, and well, now that I have light, I can see there's bedding in there. Anyways, if you ever want to remove these, you don't have to take out all the screws. Loosen all the screws. You only have to take out one of them and then slide it out. I wonder how they got in. I really wonder how they got in. Wow. I don't see anything. Well, a few gnaw marks on a wax cap. But with that much bedding and that much nastiness, that's a pretty good bet that some of the wirings, some of the transformers have been chewed up. But hey, the cabinet looks nice, and that's why I got it. Also, I have a minty set of knobs if I find myself needing to replace a knob. I'll deal with that later. The blue mask, that's an aftermarket thing somebody threw on, a gimmick, reduce glare, make the image more pleasing. I don't know. You can see it's just flopping around in there. That'll get removed. The bezel I would have thought would be black, so I don't know if that is also some kind of aftermarket. Or maybe it's gold? I don't know. I have to look at some reference photos on that. I could be mistaken. Oh yeah, I want to tell you a bit about where I got this. So it's Gary, Indiana, which there's no point in sugarcoating it. It's one of the nastiest cities in America to go to. Economic downturn is basically what it comes down to. Oil refineries, casinos, and a whole lot of urban decay. But this one particular little area, as I approached it, it looked awfully familiar to me. That's because I've been there before. This particular area isn't really bad. It's a little more rural. It's sort of on the outskirts. It's not too far off the interstate. I did see some buildings that were disintegrating, but it's mostly just small houses and kind of on big lots in an urban environment, and a bunch of graveyard cemeteries. There's like 4 of them side by side of different denominations or different ethnic groups. But it's also where there are a bunch of thrift stores. There's a Goodwill outlet store, a Habitat for Humanity store, and several independent thrift stores. And then this small house where I got this was filled with a bunch of cool mid-century modern stuff in a very tiny house. Now I went there on the last day of the estate sale, which lasted 3 days, so there wasn't a whole lot left. But I saw the photos, and there was some nice stuff. The reason I was there before is at the start of the COVID pandemic, or just before it started, or at some point before it started, I went down there to pick up that really, really, really nasty Philco Predicta Siesta. I started restoring it at the start of COVID shutdown as a way to do something while we weren't allowed to leave our homes, basically, and entertain you guys. But that's where I got it. In fact, that set was nasty. The shop it came from was nasty. I was surprised to see that shop was still in business 4 years later. But anyway, that's why I'd been down there before. So, just want to say, if you want to visit that area to go antiquing or looking for treasures, it's not really, I wouldn't worry about your safety. It's just a couple miles off the interstate, and there's nothing, I didn't have to go through any gang disputed territories or anything like that. That was a real easy pick up, turn around, and come home. I also want to mention I have been offered this identical model by several of you in the area. And I think I will be taking one of you up on your offer. Just need to arrange a pickup time. So, I don't know what condition. He sent me a photo. It looks to be better than this, but I don't know about the condition. I don't know if it's all there, or if the picture tube's good or not. I don't know if this picture tube is good or not. But what I'm thinking is that certainly between the two, I'm sure I can make one nice set. Worst case scenario, they're both in similar condition, and I'll be torn with trying to restore both of them. Oh, I should mention to you, there was a company that made reproduction metal backs for certain select sets, including the early RCAs, but the owner retired. The website is still up, and I did buy some backs from him for sets I haven't got around to restoring yet, but I don't think I got... I bought one for an RCA 630 TS, I think. It might fit on this set, but of course I bought it for another set that I have as well, so I just want to say that over time, things that you think were never reproduced or are unavailable have been. Whether they're still available or not is another story. Now, as for whether or not the picture tube is any good, it's a 10 BP4. I have spares, so I'm not going to bother testing it right now. And I have nowhere to put it, so it's going to stay out here in the garage. When I'm feeling a little bit better, I have a little bit more energy, I'm going to pull the chassis out. The chassis will probably stay out in the garage, and I'll bring the cabinet inside, and we'll take a closer look at it then, and we'll check the picture tube. One final note. A set like this has a whole bunch of electrolytic caps in it, around 18 or 20. I think there are 5 multi-suction twist lock can electrolytics. Great opportunity to use Adapt-A-Cap, and there is some exciting news on that front. I will talk about more in a separate video, but basically they have been working on other products that directly relate to twist locks with twist lock base and potentially a can you can put over your completed assembly. So I'd very, very much like to try a product like that out on restoring a set like this. That's it for now. Thanks for watching this look at an 1948 RCA 8TS30